Welcome to the Pipeline and People podcast. Each week, we unpacked the invisible systems that power high integrity consulting, leadership, and growth. On this show, we talk to the folks behind the work, not just what they do, but how they think, how they lead, and how they build businesses that actually matter. I'm your host, Jaden Parisi. Let's get into it. Today's guest is someone who quietly stepped into a 34-year-old legacy and is reshaping it with purpose and integrity. Keegan Toland is VP and co-owner of Accutrack Financial Solutions. Keegan, thanks so much for joining. Could you give us a quick rundown of your background and how you kind of stepped into Accutrack?
Yeah, Jaden, thanks for having me on. First of all, I'm super excited to be here and glad that I could just be a part of what you have going on. It seems like a great venture. Personally, stepping into Accutrack was one of those decisions that's handed to you. My grandfather had started the company 34 years ago. He had retired comfortably, and my father took over. And with his unexpected loss in 2023, my brother and I had the decision to either liquidate the company or carry on where it was. Some people, I have my own career path. My brother has his own career path. We're both public servants in very different sectors. I'm a teacher and my brother does something much cooler. But we'll keep that private for now. And the decision was simple though. Coming from a family company like that, we have people in the company who have been there. Our head of operations just celebrated 23 years. So people who have been in that company for so long and have such strong family ties to the founders of the company, it's more of a duty to continue the company for their sake, as opposed to something that we saw was, this is going to be so much extra money for us, or this is going to be, such a big career for us. The decision wasn't there because, again, we have our own passions and careers. The decision really was about taking care of the people who have dedicated so much of their life to the company already. And without carrying on, they'd be put off in a position where, they're going to have to find a job that probably very different from what they've been doing. And they're going to have to be in a new company. And that's a lot to ask for somebody who's spent as long as I've been alive or, close to it, in the same company with the same group. So the decision was one of duty more than it really was of, here's financial gain. And, I can speak for my brother in this regard that we're both very happy with the route we went. And I think it speaks a long way to have our people taken care of is really the bottom line.
Yeah, for sure. I can't imagine that being an easy decision. What were the kind of early conversations like once you first started?
Well, the company had gone through ups and downs. As financial situations change amongst the country, like obviously there's ebbs and flows in business as well. So when we were looking at our two choices to either liquidate or continue, liquidating would have meant, or selling the company would have meant pretty much making sure that our employees were paid and taken care of and offered their severance and all those kind of things. And that'd be about it. So it would have been pretty clean slate with no benefit to us. And I don't see a large benefit for the people that we would have had in the company that would have been, without a job or at the very least transferred around. So it was really, really tied into continuation of work for the people that have been dedicating their lives to it. So it wasn't much of a conversation. We had played around with the idea a little bit. And then the other thought was, okay, well, if there was somebody who really cared to buy us out or anything like that at that point of time, why not put some elbow grease into our own, see if we can really make the company grow beyond what it's been before. And, down the line, if we cared to branch off or sell or anything like that, then there'd be more value in it. But even as we preliminarily looked at those things, I don't see that being the route either. Being a family company, I'd hope to keep it a family company and keep the people who have been working with us as opposed to, the highest bidder. So yeah, it was a pretty quick wrap up to, we're just going to continue to do this and do it to the benefit of those who have been helping us along the way for so long.
Yeah, that's great. Very strong values there for sure.
Well, all centered around with the family business is just, what core values have we had? What core values do we still have? And how do we prove that those are our values in the small decisions, or in this case, a very large decision? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So once you decided like this is our duty and we have to keep this going, what were some of the kind of fears or challenges that you experienced, kind of just being dropped into this business as a teacher?
Teacher, whatever it's going to be, right? Any career path, I think you always face a little bit of what you would call like imposter syndrome, stepping into any new role, right? And that was definitely heavy in this one, considering my father was very much a communicator, right? He was a people person, and really rode on that with his client success. And that's something where I knew that I could fit in that role as well. But when you talk about the back end of things, like our head of operations is our numbers person, and the questions I have related to that, I go straight to her about it. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah.
try to pretend like I know the ins and outs of what our accountants and our numbers people do. Like I'm stepping into the role where I'm going to make good relationships with clients and make sure they're happy. And then our team will take care of that. So the imposter syndrome was a little bit big at first. And then the more you think about it, the more you realize like my grandfather was a normal guy. My father was a normal guy. It's not like we've all been in this huge line of like hard hitting business entrepreneurs or like industry giants. Like that's never been the case. Our foundation has been tight knit, client centered, family focused team, and we're going to continue to do that. So as difficult as that was, it was an easy choice to continue. And I think the biggest part of that imposter syndrome really is being a leader to a crew of people who not only are older than me, but have been in the company for longer than I've been in any job, if that makes sense. Like that's a tough line to ride for sure when you have the people who you're supposed to be in charge of with just far more experience than you could have acquired if you tried. So it's that was a little iffy at the start, but we're so glad we did it. And realistically, being an acquired leadership role has, I think, been more beneficial than if I had known enough to be in a bit over my head and like, try to steer the boat a little bit more in that regard. It's great. They've been so strong for so long that you can kind of let our people do their thing and everything runs smoothly, and we can step in and try to bring a little innovation here and there for some positive growth. But yeah, it was, I think, more of a mental bridge to get over than it was tangibly like a bar to entry to, be in the position we are. So tricky, but we made it through. And, I honestly think we have nothing but potential in front of us.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of innovation, compliance is one of those industries. It's changing pretty quickly from a tech standpoint, but sometimes can be slow to adopt. How are you approaching kind of innovation without compromising the trust that your clients have already come to expect from the last 34 years?
Absolutely. The apple of innovation is always tempting, right? There's so much you could do. But as many business owners know, implementing, even one change can change your company or bring you back several steps. So to try to think about like all the new tech we have coming in that we could use, we have people that have been working there so long that the last thing you want to do is change up their flow in a negative manner. That being said, I've had experience teaching computer science. I've done plenty of research into AI. I used to be, an AI trainer of sorts. I see the value in a lot of that stuff, but I also, even if it is a dying value, I see so much value in the person-to-person connection, the family business, the handshakes, the dinners, all that kind of stuff that if you were to fully automate your business, you lose.
Yeah.
And something that I know you and I had previously talked about, which we'll keep it blank slate here, is, some of our biggest clients, probably 4 of our biggest clients, I'd say a rough estimate, I haven't done the research, I'd be baffled if there was less than 90% of homes in America that have their products in their homes. You know what I mean? Like they're very large companies and they keep things close to the cuff. And something that I've thought about has been, is somebody like that, let's just say, big household name, whatever it's going to be, is big household name going to want to continue to work with somebody that they have trusted for the past 30 years, or are they going to switch it over to QuickBooks? Or whatever it's going to be, the next big easy peasy thing. And from my perspective, that's the same way, or the same reason I don't necessarily lean into too much of that is I want to be the company built on relationships and trusted partners as opposed to technology that changes every year. And we can always adapt and use new technology, but as a service industry, we still have the platforms. Like we can still use the new AI platforms. We can still use the high tech. But the last thing I would want to do would be stray from being able to call me directly or being able to call my head of operations directly and have a conversation and weigh the pros and cons to extra work or less work, or can we take on more work for you? There's just a lot of nuance that I think gets overlooked when you try to digitize everything, especially the relationship aspect. So as tempting as those things have been, we've steered away from them a little bit. Conversations, we have a new sales team on board, like conversations with those guys, there's room for growth as far as technology goes. All right. Like you can use AI for targeting what businesses we should be reaching out to, things like that. So we're not just throwing darts on a board, but about after that point, I want it all to be people focused. And I think that our clients that we've had for a long time and the new clients that we've been talking with, really appreciate that aspect of it and just the, personability of it. So let's say full cycle sales, our sales guy, he'll work on meeting people, connecting with people, setting meetings. But if things are looking good by that second meeting or third meeting, they're sitting down with not just our sales guy, but with myself as well, our head of operations, and maybe even my brother. Like we try to get the feel being our whole team cares. And I want to work with you, not just like, oh, cool, another client, check the box, if that makes sense. And another thing that you and I had talked about, which ties into that, is we're not just looking for, okay, how much business can we traffic in? Because some of our clients we've had for 30, 34 years. So you just traffic in whoever, all of a sudden you're stuck with partners that might be lucrative, but don't align with your values. And that's not something that you want on paper is, oh, well, we're a really good family company, but we did do a few years of work with, some guy who was defamed over whatever it's going to be. So long story short on the innovation piece is there's a place for it and we want to use that. But I see my responsibility much larger on carrying on family legacy that's grounded in certain morals and connections. And I'm happy to bring in as much innovation as possible without losing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. And another thing, like aside from the relationships you get from working with people like yourself over like a QuickBooks, it's also the human intelligence, right? So I had a podcast the other day with this guy. He does web apps and AI development and things like that. And he brought up this framework from Jonathan Stark about this story that he published called The Cab Ride. And it walks you through that there's three types of people. There's the robot, there's the technician, and the fixer, right? So the robot will follow your instructions. It'll do X, Y, and Z. The technician will be like, oh, why do X, Y, Z? Let's maybe do A, B, C, right? And then you have the fixer. So the fixer rewrites the plan. It focuses on the business outcomes. And that's something that you gain from working with someone like yourself over just, switching to QuickBooks, like you said. Yeah.
Well, that reminds me very much of a mindset that I hear a lot in business is you want to be solution orientated, not problem orientated. And if you're relying strictly on whatever computer platform or AI, it's here's a problem, let's fix it. As opposed to, you're having a conversation with somebody, and if you're telling me all about your business and I hear a couple things that might sound odd, like that's where your sales guy, your client success leader is a person to have a conversation with, and they can say, hey, I know you're in a good spot. I'm not trying to push this down on you, but have you thought about how this might come up and how we can get ahead of that, as opposed to just constantly putting out fires? And again, you're not going to get that unless you have rapport built with your clients and, you're a trusted figure to them, because otherwise what's your thought process worth to them if you're just like somebody behind a screen? That's not what we ride on. And I don't think it's a very useful thing. So yeah, if you can be the fixer before the problems come up, or you can be the fixer who's throwing those ideas out there like, hey, things are good right now, but it looks like in 3 or 4 months, you might be bottlenecked or you might be overwhelmed with work, or like, how can we plan for that? Which is funny when we have conversations with prospective clients, which I'm sure most people in most businesses get this all the time. It's like, oh, we don't need it right now, but maybe in a few months from now. Like, well, do you plan for from now in a few months, or do you plan for that right now?
Yeah.
But that's, again, a conversation you have with a person, not with, whatever data you're typing in. So yeah, I love the cab ride analogy. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to segue a little bit here into your leadership of this company. You're managing a team that's been in the business significantly longer than you. They have a bunch more experience, right? How do you earn and hold that trust without, having all the answers or, being the go-to guy, right?
Yeah. I think this is pretty strongly where my personal career as a teacher comes in. Everybody's had a teacher who just shoves information at them, but very few teachers want to, maybe not want, but have the ability to get to know kids, build that personal rapport and trust, and then build from there. And I think that's what I'm trying to do with our current client base, even, let alone just our continuing clients. They're not going to be, oh, this guy's been in business for 30 years. But what I can do is have a face-to-face conversation, see how things have been going, be very transparent about who I am and what I bring to the table, even what I lack, right? And those kind of more vulnerable or personable conversations are going to be what gains trust and what keeps people on board. I've never been shy, or I'm very confident in saying, I deal great with people, and we have a whole team who deals great with numbers, but I don't do it all. Right. And that's why I'll introduce somebody to our head of operations on the first meeting that I'm on, because you're going to talk to me and be like, this is an English teacher, guy likes to read and write, likes to be outside. What is he helping me in the business? Be like, well, I'm not, right. I have our team for that. So transparency is key in any relationship, and any kind of relationship where you'd hope to have trust. And I definitely don't stray away from that as far as our business goes.
I think that kind of managing people is definitely something that teachers might be good at. It might show up differently teaching than in business leadership, but you definitely have those skills, right? But what's a typical day look like for you? How do you balance leadership, operations, teaching, and then still kind of stay grounded?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a teacher, your schedule's a little different, right? In the summer, I have as much time as I need or want to put into the business, which is a lot of time. In the school year, though, when I have other responsibilities I have to balance, it's pretty straightforward, right? Probably most business people are going to be up before the sun, and you get your workout in, you take care of your home responsibilities. For me, then I'll go to school, right? I teach in the classroom, maybe coach depending on the season. And then my afternoons are catching up with our head of operations, our salespeople. My system is probably a little more laid back. My sales guy gets my commute calls. I'm driving home from work. What happened today? Nothing. Great. What can we plan for tomorrow? Whatever it is, I'm pretty laid back with those guys. Head of operations, she's been there for forever, and she's just great. Brady Callis, she's awesome. If I need her, I can text her, I can email her, whatever it is, but she's always wanted to make time around my schedule, which is awesome. And then any kind of downtime, it's all right, let's write a new blog post for the website, or what can I do as far as personal networking? Who do I know? Plenty of the people that I graduated high school with are in a similar situation to me, right? They're not necessarily starting their own company, but they're inheriting their father or grandfather's construction company. Okay, well, they didn't use us in the past, but maybe let's meet up for lunch and let's talk about, what do you have struggles with? What can I help with? Or at the very least, just it's good to catch up with people who are in a similar boat and share the kind of conversations that you and I are having right now, which is something that you and I had talked about off air here. Was, okay, there's a lot of people who have great experience in business, but there's going to be a lot more people who are in my shoes coming up here who are going to be faced with the same problems. And one of the biggest ones that we already mentioned is going to be this imposter syndrome. And something that I hope, if anybody takes away anything from this podcast, it's that you have inherent value based on your experiences, whether or not they're in the sector you're, right? So that's kind of leads into what you were asking, the difference between teaching and leadership style in the classroom versus, let's say, in the boardroom, or, with our clients. It's a lot more quiet leadership. So anybody who's listening, who's ever been in a classroom or is a teacher, a good teacher is going to quietly sit back for a bit, watch the kids do what they do, and figure out where there might be a problem area, right? Or where are they struggling, or let them do their whole presentation, and afterwards you give your thoughts. You don't interrupt people. You're not cutting them off, because that doesn't instill confidence in the kids. In the same way, in our company, I'm not trying to interrupt every meeting with, oh, well, I thought about this, or this, because again, that's not my expertise, right? but I can sit and I can listen and give my thoughts at the end. And then we'll do, a workshop as to, does that make sense for our boots on the ground? Or is that more of just somebody who has the overarching, 60,000 view foot on things? So I really think that, as different as they are, my time in the classroom and my education there has put me in a much stronger position to lead in a company like we are, being so established while I'm so young, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know how long I'd be retaining my employees if I was just barking at them with the limited experience I have, as opposed to sitting back, taking what they have to say for value and moving forward with that. So it's a weird balance, but it leads with a whole lot of group decisions as opposed to, VP or CEO decisions barked down. We have a lot of collaboration. And I think without my time in the classroom or coming from a service-based, family, my brother's public servant, stuff like that, without having that on the forefront where you're a helper, things don't pan out the way you'd want them to. It's just going to be my ideas that probably wouldn't be as fruitful as, the proven track record of the people we work with. So there's definitely crossover there, whether it seems like it or not. But again, like, the end message there would just be anybody who's coming into that situation, which is going to be a lot of people in the near future, don't focus on the things you lack, but focus on the things that you can bring to the table as an individual, no matter how big or small those things are.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a good approach for sure. I can tell that, they value it. I've spoken with your sales guy and connected with someone on your board. So I definitely see that the leadership style that you're using is working. But do you plan, I know we had spoken earlier and you said that you were thinking of going back to school. Like, do you plan on teaching forever, or do you want to go full time into this business? And what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you look out too far in the distance, it can get muddled, right? You're like, well, you can always think about your 10-year plan, but the next 2 years are going to change what that looks like every 2 years. So right now, my goal is to obtain my master's and continue my personal career as a teacher, because I do see the value that's brought me in all my other endeavors in life, whether it be this business, my family life, my dog, whatever it is. Like, there's relationships that are built based on what I've learned in that career. So right now my intention is to continue that and starting my master's next month. And I see it as something where the more time I put into our business in my time outside of my personal career, the more the business can flourish without my direct input, which I think, as anybody in higher leadership, that's your goal, right? You don't want to be the person doing every little thing. You want to build people up so they can do those things themselves, and you have a machine that runs well, whether you're in the office or not. So I'd hope to continue my career. And my brother is in the same boat where, his career is something he's extremely passionate about. So we both plan to continue to pursue our own careers, and bring what we've learned as we continue to grow to our company. And like you were saying, you connect with our sales guy and somebody on our board. Like, those people are going to be the future of our company. And the people who are in there right now, they're going to be training the next people that come in. So we're already in a situation where the machine runs well without us driving it every single day. And I think that's a unique and extremely fortunate position to be in. So I think we're going to continue to ride that wave as long as we can. And, even just since we started up in March or April 2023, or stepped into our current roles, it's been going well. And I definitely see that as a path that's going to continue to work for us. And I'm just excited and grateful that is the position we're in. I mean, like, very few people get the benefit of being in a position in our company like we are, while also having the time to pursue passions. And I think without that, you get into a situation where a lot of people are when they inherit a company where they don't have the passion. So they show up on, I'm doing a duty to my people, or I'm running this company that I'm not necessarily, head over heels about. And then what smidge of passion might have been there fades out, and now you're drudging along. And, what kind of leader is one who drags his feet, So I think pursuing what we really, really care about and see our personal values tied up in not only improves us as individuals, but as leaders in our company. So I don't see a reason to stray from it, and we're going to continue to do that.
Yeah. So you mentioned on our previous call, like fly fishing, literature, obviously grad school. How do those things kind of influence the way that you lead or your work life balance with the two jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. They all tie into this like quiet leadership theme, right? So something that I had seen a lot in the classroom, like I grew up really into reading and writing, mostly writing. But like stories like the Odyssey or Beowulf, like those kind of like ancient literature stories instilled what people in academia, or a lot of people probably know as the hero journey. And that frames your mindset with the idea that a lot of bad things happen. But after the bad thing happens, you can grow from it. And then another bad thing, and then you grow from it. So it's an upward trajectory if you have the mindset that each downfall comes with growth. And something I'd seen in the classroom is kids who aren't familiar with that framing just see it as life just keeps hitting, without the growth and experience from it. So I bring that in knowing that, again, not every day is going to be a new client, or not every day is going to be a huge deal or whatever it is. Like some days we're going to lose some business, and how do we pivot and grow from that? How do we learn from that and do better next time? Or how do we learn and keep pushing forward? So like, that's like the whole teaching and literature thing just ties into that. And then you get into like my personal hobbies, like fly fishing. Sure, you can see a beautiful Thomas Kincaid fly fishing poster or painting that's been handed down by generations. Something my grandfather and father instilled in me was like your peace and quiet in the outdoors. They found it in rivers, and I love it. So it's one of those things where you can disconnect, because again, if your whole life is just the stress and weight that comes with running a company, and you don't have your outlets, you don't have your quiet moments, you're not going to be a good leader. And maybe you are for a short term, but you're not in it for the long haul, because you're going to get burnt out. So really all my hobbies and stuff outside of work tie into this idea of, well, I'm at peace and I'm in my quiet there. How can I bring that quiet peace while still being a leader, in the work office or in the classroom? I think it's done me extremely well, because, you don't have a whole lot of people my age who can sit down with somebody who's been in their business for, 20, 30 years, or they started up their own business. When you meet people like that, they have a certain like calm about them normally, because they've earned their space and they know it. If you have to go conversation with those kind of people and you're just high strung or super anxious about whatever it is, there's not a lot of confidence built there. But somebody who knows how to sit and being quiet and have those quiet conversations, whether it be about something serious or just building rapport, like I think there's a lot of strength in that. So I try to make sure that all my hobbies and passions stay intact so I can bring that to the table, while also keeping a close eye on what my daily habits and hobbies are, right? Like I wouldn't be much of a leader in the boardroom if I spent my entire day fishing all the time, right?
Yeah.
I'm grateful to have the time to pursue those habits and hobbies while caring about things that do benefit me, in that personal growth realm where I can bring that to the table in business.
Yeah, for sure. And that's definitely something that I've been kind of battling with as well. I think I'm in a little bit of a different situation, kind of starting this business kind of from the ground up. And I have been making time for my hobbies. I go up to my cottage, I'll go fishing, surfing, whatever, do stuff with my friends. But I can't help but feel, a little bit unproductive when I'm doing that. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was in the same boat. I remember, last month I was out fishing. I'd gone a couple of days in a row. It's just like a really good time to go, and I was catching some good fish. But one day I was out there just getting skunked. I was like, man, I'm just losing hooks on rocks here. And like, there's something I could be doing. Yeah, I could be writing a blog post, or I could be reaching out to people.
Yeah.
So that's a good reality check too, which again, you're going to get from your hobbies or free time that's like more quiet space. Like there's few hobbies that you can do, like fishing, where your mind can also be going about whatever it is. But if I was doing something, I was rock climbing, I wouldn't be thinking about the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's good balance there. But even somebody in your stage, it's good to hear that you have those hobbies and outlets too. And obviously for you, it's gonna be much harder to make that time because you're, charging the ship here, right? You're doing the work to get it booted up. Luckily, I had people before me who put in that work. So now it's about maintenance more than it is about figuring out how we're going to get off the ground here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish you the best in those endeavors. You have a lot of days you don't catch any fish, but those are still good days. And who knows, as your podcast grows, maybe there's an episode 2 on here where we film it over some casts in your cabin in Toronto or whatever.
That'd be great.
Always business to be had over fly fishing as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, things are going well. But anyway, we're almost out of time here, so I just want to kind of move on to our last section. Something we do with all of our guests is kind of a quick rapid fire, just whatever's on the top of your head, quick 20, 30-second answers. Sound good?
I'm here for it.
All right. First one, what is a myth about leadership or legacy you wish people would let go of?
You have to be loud. The good leaders aren't the loud leaders, right? They're not always the people yelling and spitting in your face or whatever it is, right? The most powerful guy in the room is going to be typically the quiet one who's maybe wearing a t-shirt in the back of the boardroom, not always the guy who's up front yelling at you about your numbers. So I think quiet leaders are ones to be followed. And sometimes you get like fear-based leadership, like, oh man, I don't want like so-and-so barking down my neck if I goof this up, as opposed to a quiet leader, like, if I goof this up, I can go to Keegan about it and we can talk about how we're going to fix it. So yeah, I would say the biggest myth is you have to be loud to be a leader.
Yeah. Okay. One action you're taking this week that others might want to try in their own business.
They try new things, right? So like you don't want to waste time trying everything that comes across your desk, but like I've never been on a podcast before, but I see this as good exposure. And not to mention, like, even if we didn't go through with the recording, getting into my spam, seeing your email, whatever it was, or like getting you on LinkedIn, like I think there's potential growth there as well. You know what I mean? Like, so the thing you should try that you haven't been doing is go reach out to the people who may have been trying to reach out to you, or go put yourself in a new situation just for the growth of the experience. Again, like, I want to pursue a career where I'm constantly growing because I can bring that growth to the table. Don't just get stuck in the track of doing the same thing every single day. Try something new that might bring new opportunity or might, help you grow.
Awesome. And finally, what's the best piece of advice that you ever received?
I've gotten a lot of good pieces of advice, most of which from my father. Keep a couple of those as tied down fishing stories, but I would say the biggest one is to be well-spoken and make sure that you come to the table with that. So like my dad, he had gone from high school into the Navy, no college education, got into sales. He was selling vacuums for a bit, but really early on, he told me the most powerful skill set you can have is to be well-spoken and well-written. And I think that goes a really long way because again, like if you go to meet with somebody and they can't throw a sentence together that's meaningful for you, or they're writing you an email and it looks like a child wrote it, what comes from that other than, probably some secondhand embarrassment from the person you're reaching out to. All of our relationships are built on communication. And I think focusing on building that skill within yourself, whether it be listening to podcasts or writing more or going to a workshop, whatever it is, like a strong leader is one who can communicate with people at their level above them and, the entry level guys, not something to be overlooked.
Yeah, that's definitely a solid piece of advice. Sounds like something my dad would say too.
They tend to have good wisdom.
All right. Well, that's all I have for today. So, Keegan, thank you so much for being here. For anyone that wants to follow your journey or connect with you, take a look at Accutrack, where's the best place?
Find us on LinkedIn. You look up Accutrack Solutions or Accutrack Financial Solutions. You'll find us on LinkedIn. You can find me personally, Keegan Toland, on LinkedIn as well. And we'll have all of our website links right there. You look us up, feel free to try to connect with the whole team. We're a small crew and we're all happy to have a conversation with anybody, even if it's just about, what your own business is doing. Conversation. There's always something fruitful from it.
Absolutely. All right. Well,
very much. Yeah. Thank you for your time and having me on. It was a pleasure and definitely humbling. So thank you and look forward to connecting in the future.
Of course, if you enjoyed this conversation, please share the episode, tag Keegan or me on LinkedIn, help spread the word. This is the Pipeline of People podcast. Thanks for listening.